So we talk a lot about generational curses. And we often talk about, oh yeah, this thing was handed down to me by this person, and I do this thing because I was heavily influenced by this person. This continues in my family, those kinds of things, right? And I saw a tweet earlier that talked about the fact that these are not generational curses. Like, these are a lot of these things, like your grandmother's alcoholism, for example, is not a generational curse. It is a coping mechanism that she used to survive like white supremacy, right? And I thought that was so profound, and it's so true. And I've heard this sentiment before. And I love that thought that, like, we often judge our ancestors by the harm they did because they were coping, right? Like, they were coping with something. My grandparents on my mother's side, both of them smoked. And, towards the end of her life, my grandmother's life, we were trying to convince her to stop smoking. It didn't work. And she was actually like annoyed with us. But I also, beyond her just like being addicted to cigarettes for however many decades, right? I think there's something to be said about, like, no, this is how I cope. And even from the little, life that we got to spend together, little time we got to spend together, my grandmother had experienced a lot of loss, a lot of trauma, a lot of pain that she didn't really talk about, and I think smoking cigarettes for her was like a thing, like it was a coping mechanism, and I did a video about my grandfather, and somebody commented about how they were grateful that I honored them and they're smoking cigarettes. Like, I wasn't like downplaying it, like, oh, this yucky thing or whatever. They had a horrible habit of smoking cigarettes, right? Because even though the thing is, like, even though I remember them smoking cigarettes, that's not the thing I remember them for. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I didn't want them to smoke cigarettes, but I also understood why they were smoking cigarettes, right? Growing up in the 90s, we did see those commercials about how bad smoking is and stuff like that, but they didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't have that coming up. And so whatever it is, whether it be cigarettes or alcohol or gambling or, something, I'm not saying that it's okay. I am saying that I think a lot of our ancestors were just trying to survive and get through and get by. And I think what we need to interrogate more than like our ancestral curses, right? Our ancestral curses is like the root of those things. Like, why did grandma smoke? Like, what can I get from that? What was she dealing with? What can I learn from her? You know what I'm saying? Like, or, if someone was drinking, like, what was he trying to numb? You know what I mean? And it's not to also, let me be clear, we can also honor the pain that they caused us, right? I'm not saying that we should just ignore how they affected us. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is to interrogate those curses, to see what the root is, to see what we're also struggling with, right? Like, a lot of us have our own coping mechanisms that may not be healthy, right? A lot of us deal with things. I know for me, eating to feel comfort is a thing for me. And eating by itself is, benign. But if you're using it as a coping mechanism, the question should be asked, what am I eating for? Like, what do I need comfort for or from? Like, what do I need shelter from? What do I need to feel warmed by? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but beyond the curses, right? Another thing that I really want to bring up is generational blessings. Generational blessings. I think it was Coach Yolanda who was talking about this. And I think, and if I'm wrong, I will come back and correct myself. But I think Coach Yolanda was talking about generational blessings as well as curses. I hope that I'm correct. But I made a list. And I asked myself, what are my generational blessings that I've been passed down, right? Like, what things have I gotten from my family? We spend so much time talking about trauma and like the things that break our hearts. And it's good that we're talking about it. And I love that we're talking about it. But I also don't want us to miss the joy. I also don't want us to miss the good things, right? Like, everything ain't bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, even with my own father, right? He was abusive. He abandoned me, right? And even at the same time, I still have good things that I can say that I got from him. Like, one thing that I feel like I got from my father is like the love of adventure. Like, he and I, so when we were growing up, for a long time it was just me, my dad, my mom, and that's it. Then it was me, my dad, and my little brother, because he's 7 years younger than I am. And so my little brother was a baby. He couldn't ride the rides, and mommy didn't want to ride the rides. So me and my dad rode roller coasters together. He was very playful. He was very charismatic, like when he wanted to be, I think. And he was very he was a dreamer. He was a dreamer. Like he had dreams. But the flip side to that, right? Growing up, you realize like, oh, my dad was playful because my mom was shouldering all the burden, right? Like my dad got to be the fun parent while my mom was working really hard to actually keep us afloat, to give us the things that we actually like need to survive. You feel me? And I can honor both. You know what I'm saying? Like I can honor both. That was my whole point. Like, yeah, he probably should have been more involved. Not probably. He should have. He should have been involved. He should have not been an awful person, an awful husband, an awful father. You know what I mean? But like at the same time, there are some good things that I got from him. And it's hard because I'm so in that like hurt space that sometimes it's hard to acknowledge and recognize that, oh, there was some goodness from this awful experience, you know? So a list. What are my generational blessings that I've been passed down? A few things. I said the gift of music. The gift of music. My grandmother, my 2 aunts on my mom's side, and my mother all sung. So 3 sisters, they all sang. And they were always like involved in musical things. And so like, so music, I was always around it. I was always listening to it. My father is he actually can sing pretty well. He doesn't sing though, you know what I mean? But he can sing. And I think, whatever. I think a lot of people who grew up in the church can sing. I think a lot of people, if we really like gave it our best go, like, you know, it's possible. But my dad could carry a tune at least. But he loved music. He loved jazz. My mom enjoyed gospel, and they both like R&B, especially from the 80s, because I think that's when they were like in their 30s and their 20s. Yeah, like music, the appreciation of it, the creation of it. Sorry, there's a bee outside the window. I'm like, can you go away? But anyway, the creation of music, the appreciation of it. So just music, the gift of music. Like music is such a spiritual thing for me. It's a spiritual experience. It's not just, I mean, it sounds good, right? I love music that sounds good, but I love music that I can feel, and I love music that like helps me to escape for a second, or helps me to think about something, or helps me to cry, you know what I mean? Or helps me to laugh and twirl around in circles, you know, in the middle of the room. I love music that makes me feel. And I get that from my parents and my grandparents, you know, and somebody before them. My great grandmother, my granny, I don't know that she sung. She would sing along to people, you know, in church, but I don't know if she was like a singer. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, either way, but she still appreciated music. Music was a part of everything. On my dad's side, also loved music. Also made an episode on my podcast about my grandmommy, and she really enjoyed me singing Nat King Cole's Love. That was like her song, and yeah, that's a personal song to me because of that. But they still loved music. I don't know if my grandmother could sing, but she loved music. It's okay. The gift of music. And also, I also say, when I sing, I'm singing with the vocal cords, like quite literally, I'm singing with the vocal cords of everyone who came before me in my lineage. You know what I mean? Like we're all like physically made up of the people that we come from. And I'll get to that in a second, but like I have my aunt's hands and her wrists. You know what I mean? Like, so we're literally made up of the people who came before us. And so one of the things that I love thinking about is like when I'm singing, when I'm using my voice, it is not just my voice. It is my mom's voice. It is my dad's voice. It is my grandmommy's voice and my grandmother's voice and my pop-pop's voice. You know what I mean? Like all the people who came before me, my granny's voice, even though she didn't sing. You know what I mean? She didn't sing like my grandmother sang. Like they all sung and like toured places together and sung in ensembles. That's what I'm looking for. Sung in ensembles, but like, no, but even with my voice, when I speak, I'm able to speak with my granny, my great grandmother's voice. Like, so even though they're no longer here and I can't physically hear their voices, there's still connection to them, you know? And I think when we speak in general, we speak very musically. You know what I mean? Like the fact that we can understand what like intonation is, right? Intonation is musical. Like coming up, like when it come up, is that a question? Right? Just like is that a question? Or you can say the same thing 5 different ways and it all has different meaning. Like I love that SNL skit where they say girl with Meg Thee Stallion. And it's just like girl or girl or girl. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different meanings to things, to words that we say because it is musical. Because it's beautiful. But yeah, so the appreciation, the gift of music. The next thing I got was the gift of spirituality and connection to spirit. Yes. So both my families, like, heavily influenced by Christian, Black Christian culture. My mother's side in the Philadelphia area, my father's side, like, we're talking like Savannah and like South Florida. So God has always been a part of my life. I don't remember a time where, like, I didn't believe in God. And even like with Christianity or the faith, I feel like I was kind of born into it and like, oh, this is just what we do. You know what I mean? So, but even as I'm like interrogating my faith now, what is very clear to me is that there is a God. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is very clear to me is that we're having a spiritual experience. Like, this is more than just, we exist here. Like, there's something else. And I really appreciate that about my parents and about the people I come from and how important that was to them. You know what I mean? Like, even jokingly, right? Like, even jokingly, you can do whatever you want, like Monday through Saturday, for example. But Sunday comes, like, there is reverence. Like, there is, no, this is a holy day. Like, we take time to honor the God that we come from. You feel me? Yeah. So spirituality has always been a thing. Even honoring other people's spiritual things, even thinking about as a Christian, you know how Christians can be sometimes superstitious or like whatever. Like, there are some things, like, we can be so fearful of everything because we believe everything has a spiritual component. You know what I mean? Like, even some of that, and I'm not to be disrespectful, but I mean, like, even some of that, like, fear or like that paranoia sometimes is like, oh, because we understand that everything has a spirit. Now, whether we're right or wrong about that, that's a different conversation. But I'm just straight up talking about like spirituality in general. Like, we have a reverence for something otherworldly, and that came from the people I come from. We're very spiritual people, keeping up rituals, which is also a Black, what is the word? Superstition, I think, is that for New Year's, you have to make black eyed peas, chitlins, and maybe collard greens. I don't know about the chitlin part. I think my uncle just made it. But, like, you have to have black eyed peas and collard greens, I think, to start the new year off well. And that in itself is like, it's like a remembering. It's like a spiritual practice. Like, we're honoring the fact that we're about to go into the new year. We're hoping and praying that this new year brings good luck and prosperity and all these different things, right? And those things to me are spiritual, So yes, connection to spirit or God, right? The next thing I said I got from my family is my humor, laughter, and my joy. My family funny, okay? One thing my family gonna do is laugh. A lot of cultures, like, laughter is a big part of it. Like, we always say, like, laughter is medicine, and it is, right? And I think my family has used their humor and their joy to cope with things. I think that they've used their humor and their joy to heal. When I think of funerals, one thing I noticed is that my uncles I don't see my uncles crying on a regular basis. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a thing. And they grew up in a different time where men, men don't cry, or you feel a way about men crying, I don't know, or it's done in secret, whatever. At funerals, though, they will let loose, and, like, all the tears are just, like, flowing. Like, all the tears are flowing. And then they have this release, and then at the repast, they're making jokes. They're cracking jokes. And I'm grateful for their humor, right? But I also recognize that is a way for them to cope. That is a way for them to not make light of the situation, but make light in the situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be a light. And I think that humor is medicinal. I think that Black humor, Black joy is medicinal. Like, we could be in the depths of the sea, okay? Down deep, okay? But we're gonna make a joke. You know what I'm saying? Because what else, like, if not, we'll just die. Like, if we had no humor and no joy, like, what is all this for, right? Like, life is so hard. And the West is so hard on life. Like, you have to have joy. You have to have humor. You know what I'm saying? Okay. The next thing I have is a love for people. My people love people. My people love people in a way that I'm so grateful that I got to witness. Growing up, we used to go to Philly for Thanksgiving, and my grandmother had this house, and it wasn't that big, but everybody would be coming over. And I never felt overwhelmed from her. I never felt panic or, like, annoyance from her about anybody coming over. And this was also like in a time where people left their doors unlocked and people would just walk in people's houses. Even if you're not there, they would just stick around and wait for you to show up. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we're talking about a very communal people. And I got a love for people. When people come to Thanksgiving now, you introduce your friend or whoever. You know, they love saying friend. And so like girlfriend or boyfriend. But seriously, like your friends, your pals, you know, the ones you love. And they love them because you love them. You know what I'm saying? And they care about how you're being treated. Also, not just by the person you're bringing, but also by you. You know what I mean? And so my family loves people. They are people. I'm a little socially awkward. You know what I'm saying? I have my little things about me. But my family is like a warm embrace. It's just like, hey, come in, let's gather. Welcome. We're glad you're here. And you can come the next Thanksgiving. And they're going to ask about you, because they genuinely care. And they give of themselves to people, sometimes to a fault. Like, I feel like we're all unlearning people pleasing in a way. Some of us in the family. But like they give so much of themselves that sometimes they lack. Right? Like, because they really care. Like, when I tell you this is a family that would literally give you the shirt off their backs, I mean that. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes we got to be like, okay, you've done enough. You know what I mean? Like, but my family is good people. My family also gave me, generationally, a love for God's creations, nature, people, animals. You know what I'm saying? I mean, all that is nature. But everything that God creates, like, I come from a very outdoorsy family. So I have an uncle that loves hunting. My uncles have always, and my mom and my aunts, I think they were in Girl Scouts. So they've always been outdoorsy, like fishing, crabbing, boating, hunting, camping, you name it. Like, I've done it. I've done it, and I've usually done it because I was a child, just like coming along with my family. So I got an introduction to nature very early on. And I'm just always wowed by nature. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a desire to subdue it or like destroy it. Like, I just want to be in it and around it. You know what I'm saying? So a love for nature. One thing about my granny, my great grandmother, apparently like her thing was squirrels. Like, she would feed the squirrels and things like that. And I had this vivid memory of my granny sitting camping, and like a bunch of squirrels came up to her, and she was like having to shoo them away. I really think my granny was a magical person. I think I come from a family of magical people, and I think you might too. You know what I'm saying? And this is why I think it's really important, like, to really ask ourselves, like, what good did I get? I know all the bad things I got from my family, all the things I have to unlearn, all the things I have to try to repair if I feel led to, right? But I've also got some goodness, and I've got some magic from my family. Some magic. Like, the ability to see nature and honor it, like, that is magical. Like, that is spiritual. You know what I mean? Anyway, but I think my granny might have been a magic woman. I have no idea. But the squirrels loved her. Like, and when I say she fed the squirrels around her house, but when we went to Florida, there was a bunch of squirrels. It's almost like they smelled it on her. Like, oh, you're a friend to us. That is so dope. Anyway, the next thing, creativity, ingenuity, and imagination. My people are creative people. They make things from scratch. My mother makes outfits. You know what I mean? My aunt makes food. Like, and they all do it with love and like passion. Like, whatever they create is so passionate, like impassioned. Like, there's something to be said, like, about people who can use their hands. I'm always like in awe of those kind of people, very handsy, like, oh, I got this, I can fix this, I can, jerry rig this thing. I think that is like, that's watching someone create a painting. Like, that is creativity. You know what I'm saying? And I come from those kind of people. They will put something together real quick, make something work and shake. A lot of times, I feel like, because if you experience poverty, for example, I think you get really creative. You have to, because you don't necessarily have the funds to get it done for you or to have it, like to buy it. You might have to create it yourself or like figure something else out. And those are the kind of people that I come from. I tell the story of my grandmommy when she left her husband and went to Florida. I was just like taken with the story that she told about how, she didn't have no money and she had 5 kids and she had to fix something for dinner. And dinner that day was cake. That to me is creative, right? Everyone's so creative. But seriously, like that was creative. Because you're taking care of the hunger, and also like you're doing it in a way that is fun and honorable, that like your kids will like remember forever. Like, oh, I remember the time we had cake, and they might not know why y'all had cake. You feel me? Anyway, but yes, okay, so creativity and imagination. Oh yes, my imagination is big. Okay, I dream big, I see big, I think big. You think it's small. I'm thinking about that clip. But anyway, I think big, and I get that from my people. Excuse me, I get that from my people. Yes. So the next thing I got is a desire to pursue freedom above all. One thing my family is going to do is be free. They might like, it might look different for different people, but freedom is a big value for them. And I got that desire for freedom. I got that desire for freedom from my family. We know like what it is to feel stuck. We know what it is to feel, you know, and I'm laughing to myself a little bit because my family thinks that I am like, oh, you're just the free one or whatever. I'm like, where do you think I got that from? Like, where do you think that I got my bravery from? Where do you think that I got an idea that, oh, I can do something different, right? I got it from y'all. Like, that's who I got it from. And so, yes, I have this internal desire. I do think that some things were placed in me by God, but I also feel like either those things were nourished by my family or like they were also given or learned from my family. You feel me? So like, yeah, so freedom above all. The next thing I said is passion, heat, and fire. I'm a passionate person. And so are my family members, okay? A lot of them, their passion can be misunderstood as anger or frustration. Or maybe it might come out as anger and frustration. But one thing my family is passionate. When we believe something, we believe it. When we are doing something, we're doing it. You know what I mean? When we mean to say something, we meant it. I'm fiery. I used to be afraid of being fiery because I didn't want to be, as a people pleaser, I didn't want to be seen as too much. Black girls are always too much and not enough at the same time. I didn't want to be seen as too much. I also didn't want to feel like I'm like railroading people. I don't know how to explain it, but like, you know, you didn't want to be that person. But like, I'm a fiery person. Like what I feel deeply. What I believe, I'm very convicted by. You know what I'm saying? Look at me ball up my fist. I'm so serious right now. But what I believe, I'm convicted by, and what I believe, like I believe. You know what I'm saying? And I get that passion from them. Another thing I get from them is hope. Hope. I have hope that things can get better. I've seen my family stick through some things, even when they probably should not have. I'm out of hope. There are a lot of people who stay in situations longer than necessary because they have hope. They have hope. What it's based on could be a different conversation, but it's still something that a lot of people don't have is hope. Yeah. So even through rough things, like my family is a very committed people. Like even if they complain, they still gonna show up. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they do it out of duty, you know what I mean? But I think a lot of it is out of hope that like, yeah, we might be in a tiff right now, but I'm hoping that, you know, but I'm being vocal about it because I have hope that we can mend our relationship. I'm being vocal about it or being, you know, passive aggressive about it, even though that's not the best way to do anything. Because I miss you and I love you and I have hope that we can reconcile. You know what I'm saying? Sensitivity. My family uses humor to deflect their sensitivities, but they are very sensitive people. I think I got that from all of my ancestors. Like you don't get the fire or the passion without sensitivity. You know what I mean? Like, so my family is very sensitive. How they express their sensitivities is a little different. So like I said, they use humor and things like that to brush it off, but they are sensitive. My family, I've seen them get their feelings hurt, and not say anything about it. I've seen like because of pride or because of fear, right? Like you don't want to say, hey, you hurt my feelings and then have your feelings not be honored, or like, hey, this feels weird right now. And then you don't want to be weird about it. You know what I'm saying? Like we all know what that feels like. But like my family is sensitive. They care deeply. And like I said, they love deeply. And if their love is not met with what they expect or like mutuality or something, they feel away. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, they're very vocal about it. But they are so sensitive and I love that about them. They gave me a way to be sensitive. And also like my family will tease me My family will tease me about my sensitivities. And you know how families tease. So I don't take it, whatever. I don't take it personal. But when I was growing up, we would leave Philly and I'd be crying, or we'd leave Florida and I'd be crying or whatever. But my family in Philly would make fun of me. Why are you always crying? You always crying. And say, because I love you and I miss you, right? And I do think that my family, what I'm grateful for is that they allowed me to be sensitive. There were times though that they were very much like, stop all that crying, right? Or even their frustration with my crying, I recognize now as sensitivity. I have this vivid memory of my dad yelling at me after I fell down the steps at my house. I fell down the steps and my dad yelled at me. And I was crying because I was like, why are you yelling at me for making a mistake? Like, why are you yelling at me? I felt like I did something wrong. And as I am now, I realize like, oh, my dad was yelling at me because he didn't want me to get hurt. I'm not saying that his response was good, but he was yelling at me because he didn't want me to hurt myself, because he cares about me. You know what I mean? So like, even being able to see things that way, like, oh, my family is sensitive. So even when they're making fun of my sensitivities, they probably feel that. Like, they probably feel like, oh, I miss you too. I love you too. But they're not going to be vocal about it in the same way that I am. But, you know, because of whatever, I don't know why, I'm unashamed of my sensitivity. And not saying that they are ashamed of it, but I'm not ashamed. I don't feel, I'll tell my uncles, even when I'm like, I love you, look them dead in the face, I love you so much. You know what I mean? Or, you know, when they're trying to like get off the phone real quick or whatever, like, because I love them and I understand where they are, and I'm not going to force them to be who they're not or who they're not comfortable being. You know what I'm saying? But one thing about it is you're not going to not know that I love you, you know? So anyway, sensitivity. Okay. The next thing, intuition. I said telepathy. I'll get to that in a second. Intuition, telepathy, feeling, and like a knowing. I played down a lot of my knowing growing up. And I think a lot of women do this. Like, a lot of us are like taught to not trust our intuition or what our feelings are saying. And just like I said, that's magical powers to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, magical. But anyway, we're taught to like, oh, it's not what you think it is, or let's give them a chance, even though we know deep inside, we already know, like, and I think I got that from the women in my family. I think I got that from the women in my family. I'm not a good liar, right? But when I tried to lie as a child, I mean, you're a child too, so like, lies are stupid. They don't make sense. Like, my mom would find out stuff like that. And even with other things, right? Not even just with me. My mother would like ask God for proof of something, and there's proof of something. I don't know what you call that. Okay. And I don't mean it. I mean, like, literally every time she goes to God and say, God, please show me this thing. Show me the truth. Boom. Like, there's something about it. My aunt is the same way. They're very spiritual people. But I also think like we've kind of been taught to like fear our spirituality, or like our superpower, so to speak. Like I said, like our intuition. And so I think from the women in my family, and also from God, right? Like my creator, like I feel like I have a very deep intuition. Like, I can read people pretty well. And I've done things against my better judgment that I was like, dang, I should have listened to myself. I know it, right? And I'm just like, you knew it, so why didn't you trust it? Because I've been taught not to trust, not to trust myself, you know? Or I can read people in a way that they can't read themselves sometimes. Yeah, like and I also feel like this heavy, often like depression, like I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, but I feel like a lot of my mental health issues are actually like opportunities for superpowers, right? Like, I am depressed because stuff is trashy and it's depressing, right? And because I can see it. I'm depressed because I know a lot. I don't know how to explain it. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, a knowing. I said another thing I got from them, which I kind of said earlier, a closeness and kinship to the earth. My family loves and respects the earth. I talk a lot about how my grandparents would sit on their porch, smoking a cigarette, and just like looking out into nature. And our camping experiences when I was a child were very much like that. It was just like an observation thing. Like, we weren't going there to like take pictures, and we took pictures, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, it wasn't about the look of the thing. It was about the appreciation of nature. And so we would go and we would just sit. eat, sit, be in a camper, tell stories, talk to each other. Um, those are some of my favorite memories. Going fishing as a kid, I would always go like exploring while my father was fishing. But going exploring as a kid was fun for me. That was my favorite part, like going in like shallow water and trying to find some rocks and things like that. Or when my parents caught a fish that wasn't like croaker or spot, like some weird something, I'd be like, oh my God, what is that? That's so weird. Learning how to put worms on a fish and a hook. Like all these things were very meditative practices that I feel like I need to get back to. Like I realize now, you know, as a kid, you're like, y'all don't want to do nothing. Y'all don't want to go nowhere. And it's like, no, like they had it right, you know, like, and they showed me how to sit still in nature and appreciate it, how to be content with all this natural beauty around us. You know what I'm saying? And I got that from my family for sure, from experiences, but I'm guessing they also got that from other people before them. So whoever those ancestors are, bless you, thank you, right? Just like a closeness to the earth, an honoring of the earth. Like we don't litter, we don't destroy what we have, we use, we honor. My grandfather, like he had chickens and stuff like that when my family was growing up, like, and he would prepare the meats, and it wasn't like, you know, there was an honor to it. It's like I'm gonna cook what we can eat. Like it wasn't an overconsumption thing. You know what I'm saying? So yes. So the next thing I wrote down are my freckles and my moles. So all of this, like I have moles and freckles all along my nose, under my eyes, on my cheeks, right? I get that from the women in my family. All of them have this, like all of them. And I love that I have them because it's almost like little kisses from them, you know, from ancestors that had passed on, like my Aunt Eunice or my grandma, you know what I'm saying? Or my granny. But all of them have this and I love it. And it's just a reminder of like who I come from. So yes, my freckles and my moles, you know, it's a blessing to me. It's a blessing to me. So I said the next thing I have are my Annie Marty's and my Annie Jackie's hands. So this is the size of my wrist, right? For those of you watching. My wrist is kind of thick, and growing up, I used to want to have like dainty wrists and like dainty hands and like thin hands, and I don't. It is what it is. And I realized like after my Annie Marty passed, I was like, oh my God, I have my Annie Marty's hands. Like I have her wrists, excuse me. And then it wasn't until recently that I looked and I was like, oh my God. I was looking at my nails for some reason and I was like, my hands kind of look like my Annie Jackie's. Like what? It's very interesting. And I used to have like this lump on my wrist. It's since gone. I don't know what it was or what happened. God bless. Thank you, God. It's gone now. But I used to have this lump, and my Annie Marty, like her wrists were like mine. And I was sitting on the steps talking to my mother, and my mother looked at me and she was like, oh my God, I just saw Marty in what you just did. And I was like, yes. I was like, I too have been seeing my Annie Marty in me. Like I too have been seeing glimpses of her, which is so beautiful because it's like we get to see our ancestors after they have passed on, you know? So yes. Another thing I got, is my father's crooked smile placement. So I think this side goes back further. My right side goes back further than my left. My dad's smile is crooked like that too. Like he tends to hold his mouth on one side. So I got that from him. But for my mother's smile, I get her smile. So I'm trying to smile. Like when I try to smile, it never works. But yes, but my top lip curls under when I smile. My mother's does the same thing. And also my dad's, which is interesting. But like, that's how I have a gummy smile, right? And my mother has a similar smile to me. So I get both of my smiles from both aspects of my smile, I should say, from both my parents. Another thing is a righteous anger and a bent towards justice. Okay. I found out after he passed that one of my uncles was in the Black Panther Party. I had no idea. These people, it's just like, you know, you grow up and you're like, oh, that's just Uncle so-and-so or whatever. And the whole time they have a whole life, you know, before you even enter the world. But anyway, like he was in the Black Panther Party. And even though a lot of my other family members weren't necessarily involved with things like that, like an organization, they too, even in their personal lives, were very much about justice and very much about like using their righteous anger to seek restoration, justice, and peace, right? So even if there's conflict in the family, somebody did something wrong, I don't know, like a lot of my family, even if it's a personal offense, like, no, we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it. Very confrontational people, and sometimes very confrontational people, but in a good way, right? Like, we have to talk about it because you're being weird, right? So then I said, my tight coils. So my hair, sorry, I just like burped and my nose burned. Woo. My tight coils in my hair, right? You know how like when you burp from soda? Anywho, I get that from my family. I get that from, these are like the patterns of the people I come from. In my hair video, I talked about how I have like a bunch of different grades of hair in my hair. You know, they're all like, whatever. Just some are more tighter than the others, some are looser than the others, and I'm just like, wow, I must have like the pattern of like every ancestor in my head. You know what I'm saying? Like, because yeah, like I have random like straight hairs that just don't make any sense, and when I say random, I mean like 5 in this one little section, like just randomly put, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's just very interesting because I'm just like, what is the story even of my hair? You know what I mean? Like, of the people that I get my hair from. Like, what was their story? You know, what was it like for them to brush their hair in the morning? Also have my mama's ears and my mama's knees. So my mom's ears are smaller than mine, but the shape of them are the same. So yeah, so I'm still journaling and thinking about different blessings that I've been passed down. And of course, like the ultimate blessing is them, right? Like, I'm glad that I have my family. I'm glad that they're like literally still around. And I'm able to see literally the manifestation of my family's love for each other, and my uncles and aunts and cousins, and you know, and nieces and nephews, and you know, all the people, you know. So that's all I got for now. But that's what I want to ask you. What are your generational blessings? Like, we talk about the curses, and even like the truth behind those curses, but like, what about the blessings? I'd love to hear it. Okay. I think I'm done. I'll talk to you later. Bye.